on-demand pay is huge right now. With the market the way that it is, there's this Bright Plan study that showed that an employee loses like over 11 hours of productivity every week due to this financial stress. Really? Right, that they have, where they're just like pouring out of their pores is like, how do I make this work? How do I put these things? People stress about money all the time.
Tell everyone a little bit more about you and your journey to where we are now.
People officer at iSolve, the most amazing job in the world. Honestly, I'm so lucky. I really love this business. It's fun to work for an HR business, an HR enablement, business as an HCM and payroll provider in the U.S. And I get to do a lot of things that are not your core internal HR. I get to do a lot of sales, a lot of marketing, a lot of interesting conversations about the product and where we're going, the future of the business, and that makes it a really kind of interesting, exciting thing. I've been in HR for, oh gosh, I don't want to date myself, 23 years.
Oh, that's all right. It's not bad.
And it's a lot of fun. I fell into it. I'm just a people person, right? I like people. So
nice. It
seems like the right thing to do, in my youth.
I don't know about that whole, you have to be a people person to be in HR. What do you think about it?
There are lots of different HR roles. I think some people are not people don't fall in. Like, we need a lot of analytical people, right? I think it comes in all flavors.
It's true.
Definitely.
Yeah, because you always hear I've realized I was a people person and I'm going to go into HR, and I realized that doesn't always translate.
It doesn't. It did for me, but it doesn't always translate, Chris. I think you're right.
Yeah, love it. You're right. How's it when you kind of how did it work with iSolve? Did they reach out to you? Kind of, how did this opportunity come to life?
Yes. Yeah. Mark Duffel, who's the CEO, and James Norwood, who's our head of strategy, they had worked together before for other XLKKR private equity owned businesses. And they, were going to take on roles with iSolved. And because Mark and I had worked together before, he called me and said, their CPO just left. I'd love if you'd like to come by. We were just in the middle of an exit for the prior company that I was with. So it was perfect timing. Oh, wow. I said, I'll be there in 5 minutes.
They're like, why is she so keen? What's wrong?
Literally, it was kismet, right? It was meant to be. Absolutely. I already knew about the company. I've been a client previously.
Oh, you're a client.
So I used the software, which is nice.
Cool. All right.
And so I had spoken with their executives before. I knew a lot about the company and the product, so it just kind of made sense.
Nice. When you go into this role, is it discussed in a conversation on the onboarding that part of your role is sales, or not really? It's just like indirectly, like just out of curiosity. Because obviously,
yeah, it wasn't.
No.
Yeah, it wasn't as a part of that discussion. I really didn't even think about it when I came on board. It was a culture shift kind of onboarding. It was here for a reason. We wanted to grow the business even faster and go further, and a huge part of that is culture. So that's your main corner of HR.
Yeah, of course.
So it just made sense. And Mark is an incredible sales leader and executive, and James is incredible, with product and marketing. So it just made, and we're 3 corners of a triangle, really, if you think about it. So it was really meant to be in a really, really quick transformation, especially from a cultural perspective. The employees were so ready for it.
Amazing.
And the product is great. So that helped a lot.
How often are they bringing you into the product team to have conversations around? Because obviously you are also the end user.
Super user, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're a little bit bigger than our target market for the product, but that's not good or bad or indifferent, right? It's a great product for our size as well. So we get to, beta everything, break everything.
Nice.
Right? Like, we're QA, beta, we're sitting here, my whole team
That's cool.
it has the opportunity to interact with our product team. And we have regular meetings. I'm very close and talk almost every day to our head of product, Pragya Gupta. And it's fantastic. It feels so great to be a part of the innovation of the product.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. It's something different, right? As well.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredibly motivating. It's really motivating for my staff as well, because they get to kind of take it to the next level and really be honest about what it is that they're working with, which is also really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we get, access to a lot of resources and a lot of best practice that we probably normally wouldn't have access to just at our fingertips. So,
nice. So who's your target? Because I only came across the company recently. Who is the target or size companies? for your product?
Well, we can service any size, 5 employees to 5,000, let's say, and even bigger. We have a lot of franchises, for example, that are on similar instances that
Okay.
have many, many, many thousands of employees. But target market, I'd say probably, just in my opinion, be 500
Yeah.
ish to 1,000 maybe. We've got the product is great. It actually is really easy to use on the back end, which makes it really attractive for administrators.
Yeah, I bet.
Which is not always the case with HCM. So
No, definitely
certainly what
not.
I really appreciated about it when I came on board was like, oh, it's very intuitive. I know exactly, what to do. I don't ask me to do the math and figure out the technical things, Chris. That's not going to end well. So if I can figure it out, it's easy to use.
Yeah. Well, it kind of just goes, my first question kind of goes 360 to we didn't mean to this to be related, but our first part of this conversation was about the economic downturn. And I know something that stood out to me when I looked at the website was the on-demand pay, and then how that's supporting employees during this economic downturn. So it kind of worked quite well, actually, as a segue. Could you share a bit more about that? I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. On-demand pay is huge right now. With the market the way that it is, there's this Bright Plan study that showed that an employee loses like over 11 hours of productivity every week due to this financial stress.
Really?
Right, that they have, where they're just like pouring out of their pores. It's like, how do I make this work? How do I put these things? People stress about money all the time.
Well, I know that growing up, as I said, with a single mum and 4 kids, it was every day. I don't think there was a day that went by where we didn't worry about how we're going to make pay for electricity, get our next meal. So living like that it's really, really hard. And that's what also led to my anxiety and everything, stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Which I still, even to this day, is with me. Even to this day.
Think about if your mom would have had access, in those tough months or those tough weeks to her paycheck early, right? On-demand pay, right? Like sometimes it's about when the bills are due.
Yeah.
Right. It certainly was for me as well growing up, Chris. So I totally get it. I get why it's important. I get why technology is helping us to be able to do it, faster, better, stronger. I think that if you have more control over your finances, you're going to stress less.
Yeah.
Right?
So how does it work? Break it down. How does it work in the company? Like can you just break it down a little bit for the audience? How does that work?
If you want your paycheck ahead of time, you can have it ahead of time. They're going to assume that you're going to have a certain number of hours in the system. You can set it up as an employer. You can feed a card, right? If you want, you can have it downloaded into your bank account, right? Direct deposit. But it's just knowing that you don't have to wait for that next paycheck. And sometimes you can set the parameters of when it can be, withdrawn, for example. Many companies already pay at least a week in arrears. So it's not like the company's not going to know that those hours are due, right? So it just makes sense to be able to do that for people who need it and are working, especially paycheck to paycheck or at a lower hourly wage, and they need access to their money. They don't have a savings.
Are there parameters in place to make sure people don't misuse that, or like there's only so many times they can do it, stuff like that?
Yes, you can set it up that way. It depends on the technology, but it's very common for you to be able to advance a check or to pay yourself a check for the amount of time that you're already in arrears. So the company knows that you're not going to leave, and then they'll have to pay the money.
Yeah.
And usually for most companies in the US, probably a week. It can be 2 weeks. It can be a lot longer than that as well. But it's very common to pay in arrears. So there's really when you pay in arrears as an organization, there's no risk as a business, right? Or you could, not do that and decide you want to advance pay in a different way, right? There's some technologies that allow you to do that as well. And the risk kind of outweighs the reward for most things, especially if you're in a state where you have to pay out like paid time off that's accrued and not used and things like that. There's money out there that you can kind of offset.
Looking into the data, looking into the data of your customers, do you actually see a lot of them? Is it quite well used? Is it like something that
it's a fairly new offering for us as a company, but it's picking up speed. So the industries that we're in have a lot of hourly workers.
Yeah.
So, and those individuals who may need access to something
like the franchises,
this. So
for example, that you mentioned.
Exactly. Yeah. Think quick serve restaurant or, hotels, accommodations. In those kind of environments where you have those types of workers, you're going to potentially have more need. for something like this. So again, fairly new offering, but it's definitely picking up speed, and it's becoming kind of a buzzword right now. But it's something that will just be standard, I think, going forward, and something that we allow, especially, as the economy continues to kind of ebb and flow and flux. It's one of those areas where you can set an advantage for your employees in a bad situation, right? And have it there and set up ahead of time just in case.
That's important.
Their car breaks down, or you
never know when those moments are going to come up, right?
Apartment or something. Yeah, you just don't know.
No one can plan for it, but at least knowing that you have something there to help you out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You never know when those moments are going to appear where you need extra cash.
Right. And it's becoming an employer's duty, really, to look out for their employees more and more. Yeah. Right? Even from a personal perspective, right? We're a part of their lives, right? As an employer, and
the good times and the bad
things, and how do we handle them, right? Exactly. Yeah. So why not, give them the option and the opportunity, to not have to stress if something like that happens.
I don't want to make this a sales pitch, and I wasn't expected to ask you this, but every time, like we're approached by many companies in your space. Obviously, we work with the larger. I don't want to say their names out there because I might get in trouble. You know who they are. The larger HCMs that everyone knows. What makes you different?
What differentiates us? Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, it is just the ease and usability of the product. I think it's really, we were talking about it earlier, just the back end, the admin, the reporting, incredibly easy, very intuitive. You don't have to take 40 hours of classes to figure out how this thing works from a payroll administrator and ACM administrator perspective. So really incredible there. A differentiator for us also is just the service level. We have a named service representative for our customers, which is crazy. You just don't get that level of service anymore.
For every person. Wow. Okay.
For every client. Yeah, it's incredible. And we're just so incredibly accessible, I think, to our client base. We talk to a lot of clients. We've done, 52 roadshows so far this year, which is where we get our clients in a certain location in a room and chat with them and talk to them about how they can utilize the product and optimize the utilization of their products and ask their questions and even solve, potential opportunities that they might have. We've got very happy, brand positive employees, which you don't always have.
Like you.
I'm a walking billboard, right? But, it's crazy when I walk into any of the offices. I was in Charlotte last week. 90% of the employees had something I solved on. Like, when does that even happen? Never, right? These people are happy to be here. We have a low turnover rate. Like, they're clearly engaged. It's honestly a jolt of adrenaline from an HR person to walk into an office and feel that. Just incredible.
You can't have a product and have those values and not live it internally.
No. You can't. And we're improving things every day as well. So, I think a lot of software companies can say that, but it's really good items that we're working on from a product development perspective that are aligned to what the clients have asked for, because we've been listening to the clients. So it's not like what's the cool and new thing out there necessarily. It's really about what will make the most sense for your business. How can we help you do this faster and more effectively? How can we just get it done? Yeah. Right? That's incredibly important for us as well. Help you get it done so that you can spend time doing all of the wonderful things and engagement and developing yourself. Also really, really big right now.
Obviously, a lot of the customers are small to medium-sized businesses. We're continuing to see hiring struggles, tech layoffs.
Yes.
What are you seeing at the moment? Is it just tech, or is this a wider spread issue that you're seeing?
It is right now a lot of tech. It's a lot of businesses who are highly leveraged. Those interest rates going up, and unfortunately that means that there are a lot of white collar workers out there looking for new roles. We track them all. We hire many of them, right? We do active reach out for companies, for individuals online that have been laid off in lots of different industries, and so. We take advantage of that because we're always hiring great talent. And we're in a market, the HCM market just isn't as volatile as many of those other businesses. So we're very lucky that we can continue to hire and grow. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of that. Not a lot in our smaller client base and not a lot in the service industries, which is great.
That's good.
We're going into a fairly busy time. It's still buoyed for the most part, but we're starting to see that there are some travel related industries that are starting to not see as advanced bookings as they used to, or they were maybe this time last year. So there's a little bit of people holding back, I think, a little bit from a spending perspective, just a bit now. But we'll see how it continues. We'll see how it goes. We're doing a lot of work supporting clients that do have that situation happening, right? There's a lot that your HCM provider and payroll provider can do to support you, and your benefit provider can do to support you. And even small things, if your company is struggling, look at suspending your 401k match, or put a little more money back in the till for a little while, for example, or limiting PTO. There's some things, and now these all impact employees, and that's right from an engagement perspective. You have to weigh that, but if you're going to do those things before doing layoffs, I think that's huge. There are lots of things that you can do as a business to curb spending, even if it's temporary. So you don't have to take employee jobs out.
I'm definitely seeing a lot of people cut back now.
Not spend just quite at the level that we did, maybe. Even, justify every hire.
Even my brother's girlfriend works in Harrods, which obviously is like super expensive. It's
nice store. I've been there.
But she's like, it's empty. She's like, no one's coming. Like, people ain't got you're not going to go in there and buy a £800 t-shirt. Like during the time where people
you don't know
are
you're gonna
back.
have £800.
So they're she's like, Chris, I've never she's been there for like 10 years. She's like, I've never seen it so bad.
That's where it starts, right? And it gets down to the people who wait your table, right? Because they're not going to go out to eat because that's a nice to have, right?
That's true.
So they're going to lose their jobs at some point if it continues to kind of go down that.
We have to bring
route.
down inflation. So it's just too much.
We do.
One of the things that you mentioned last time we spoke, though, was about combating imposter syndrome in the workplace. Why is that something? Why is that something that's top of mind for you?
Well, I don't know if you've experienced this, Chris, but I certainly have experienced the "I am not enough"
every day
thoughts in my head, right? Like,
still get those every
clearly
day.
I am failing at whatever it is that I am trying to do, right? That imposter syndrome. Like, what am I really doing? Do I really know how to do this job? Do I really know how to be a great parent and a great wife and a great partner and a sister and friend and daughter and all those things at once? Can I really do that? That's what imposter syndrome is, right? And I think it's rampant. I feel like it's normal. And I really actually appreciate how it's been coined as imposter syndrome, because it really I think it resonates with me a little more than it probably would if I would have had access to the awareness of something like this when I was younger in my career, or when I was earlier in my career. I probably would have been able to get over it a lot sooner than I think I was able to, and gain that confidence just by acknowledging that it's real and that it's okay and that lots of people have it. And I feel like it can be career limiting for someone who just can't gain that confidence and doesn't understand where it comes from, or thinks that they're the only person who feels like this right, on the regular. And it can come up all the time. I mean, even for me, I've been doing the same thing for 20 years, and I still feel like, especially in my role, a lot of people look to me and go, what do we do? I've never dealt with this. Think about the pandemic, Chris. Like,
everyone turned,
HR people have never been through this before.
Everyone looked over to HR and was like, hey, what do we do? And you're like, what do we do? Oh, it's us. Me. I'm the person who's got to make the decisions. Yeah, I can imagine. I wasn't in that role, but I spoke to thousands of people, or hundreds of people that were in that role, in that position.
Absolutely. And it was insanity. But that's a lot of what HR, I think, does. We pick up the pieces and answer the questions other people can't answer, right? Where people always throw something new at you when you're dealing with people. It's always going to be new and unique and crazy. But that internal confidence, it's not something that I think is innate in everyone.
What would you say is the toughest thing about being a HR executive?
I would say the toughest thing about being an HR executive is probably having to be on all the time for me. I am on all the time. I have a high energy level. Like, I operate at that level, kind of that high frequency level for most of my day. And it's exhausting. It really is exhausting for me. It's also natural. So I can't imagine if I wasn't kind of wired like this, how tough it would be. But
for people that don't realize, what do you mean by being on all the time? Break that down.
You're presenting your very best self. You're marketing the business all the time. I am right now, right? But this is normally me. Like, I'm not. It doesn't mean you're not being authentic. It just means I think you're projecting the best,
yeah, I get it.
the best part of yourself for endless hours a day, right? You're marketing the company to candidates and to other executives, and you're helping people through their emotional opportunities and their just emotions in general, and even the emotions of the organization, right? Culturally, right? You're thinking about how do we move and flex these things? How do we have really difficult conversations? There's a lot of brain power and kind of emotional power that goes into that. And I think that you run on high for a long time when you're an HR person every day. It's very constant, and sometimes it can burn you out. And I think that's the case with a lot of individuals in either high power or high stress role.
Yeah.
And that is the hardest thing I think about HR. I think if you're not wired, especially with growth businesses, I think if you're not wired to be able to roll with the punches and make change and have those tough conversations and deal with people that are emotionally draining in lots of different ways every day, and be able to sustain that level of, commitment and understanding and acknowledge it, I think it can burn you out pretty quickly. I think that's how a lot of us get jaded, I think, later in our careers. I see it a lot, where, we've just seen it all and we just go, Has it gotten easier?
One more thing. Does it ever get easier?
I think it did for me. I think that confidence has definitely helped with that, because you're not using as much of your emotional energy on things like, I'm not good enough, or I don't know how to do this, or I'm really worried about that conversation. I don't wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what I'm going to say in this tough meeting that I'm going to have the next day anymore. I sleep really well. I think a mark of that.
Doesn't mean you don't care. Just, I got to get my sleep.
No, actually quite the opposite. I think when you do have a good routine and you can sleep and you can give all of yourself, and you have a lot more time for people, throughout your day. And then you want to be enough for your family as well, right? Like, I'm burnt out. I don't talk about work after work. Yeah. I'm done.
Is that almost like a rule you set at home with the family, or not? It's just an unspoken rule.
It's just an unspoken rule for me. I just don't have to rehash it, right? Like, I'm good. But my husband likes to talk about his day, and I think that's fine, and that's part of his process, and I'm totally open to that. Maybe that's the HR person in me that's like, what do you need? What can I do? What can I be for you right now?
Because sometimes when my wife asks me that, to that point, I don't want to talk about it.
No.
Like, I just don't. And she's like, what do you mean? She gets upset. I'm like, I just need to not talk about work. I just need to anything else. Just let me just focus on.
Can we just not do our own personal podcast at home? Is that okay? Like,
She's like, how does it make you feel, Chris? And I'm like, no. Can you imagine? No, I get what you're saying. No, I get it. Sometimes you just want to leave work there and just separate. How do you re-energize? How do you? Yeah.
I sleep really, really well. I'm the person who can roll over and be asleep in like 2 seconds.
I hate people.
I'm done. I'm out. I know people who can't do that hate people like me.
That's my wife. My wife will drink a cup of coffee, no joke, and go to bed. I'm like, what?
Absolutely.
Or a can of Coke just full of sugar and caffeine, and she'll roll over and she'll be snoring in 2 minutes. And I'm like,
yeah. Honestly, it's a gift.
I'm so jealous. I wish.
There's no other way to put it. It's just some people are wired like that and they can do it. I couldn't do it though when I was younger in my career. I used to rehash things in my head. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like I need to send that email, or I need to write this down. I just don't do that anymore.
One of the things I've learned to do that is to get that out. I write that list and then before I go to sleep.
Yes,
so it's almost like I'm getting it out of my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't have to sit in there all night, or you don't have to think, I'm going to forget about this when I wake up in the morning.
No, and I'm like, all right, tomorrow begins. Then I look at my list. I look at my list of tasks, and I'm like trying to translate what that even means. I'm like,
No. So the other thing I think I do is I just don't leave things for tomorrow that I can do today. And it doesn't mean I'm working until midnight. It just means if I know I can get that done, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to procrastinate about it, because procrastination is my kryptonite, and I know that about myself. I can't wait until the last minute. My work product will be great even if I wait till the last minute. It's not that. It has to do with like the level of emotional turmoil you put yourself through for absolutely no reason. You've literally done it to yourself.
Is that something that you've discussed with your team in terms of this ain't going to be easy? I mean, like, your experience along the way, because them doing their masters in HR, you don't learn that. The education piece doesn't prepare you for what it truly means to sit in the seat.
No, I couldn't agree more, Chris. I'm sure you hear this from a lot of executives that it doesn't even matter what you went to school for. Like HR is a totally different animal,
Mm,
and it requires a lot of that. You can learn all about all the best practice that you want, but until you live it and go through this, you're not going to know. I run
yeah.
into a lot of new HR professionals just coming out of school, and they're like, "This job is not what I thought it was going to be."
Yeah, well, the people challenges. Like people ask me about business. I'm like, the business, actually running the business, the product,
Easy part.
is the easy part. It's managing people, personalities.
Yeah.
The people
Yeah.
issues and challenges, and
You're talking to people about
relationships. Yeah.
Yep, you're talking to people about problems that nobody else wants to tackle. That's why you're talking to them, right?
Mm.
Like clearly, these are the hardest things. These are behavioral opportunities that people have that they've never been able to change, or thoughts that they have that they've never been able to address, or relationships between people, like at different levels and different people and different problems, and
Yeah.
throw a person in there and it's going to be totally different soup, right? It's a weird job in that way, but you always have the business kind of going on in the background of your mind, and you're like, how do I build a fair practice here? How do I communicate this fairly? How do I mitigate risk for the organization as well, right? As support this employee who's clearly going through a horrible thing for them, right? They're very affected.
It's weird though, because you've got like two contrast. You're holding two opposing views in your brain at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I use my left and right brain at the same time all the time. Like I'm like, oh, emotional support. Oh,
Yeah,
we need to make sure that this risk is mitigated for the organization.
Yeah,
like
it's tough.
It's a weird place to be. And that's why we have jobs though. That ensures job security for HR, because that ultimately it's very unique, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody could do it.
It's not,
right.
not everyone's cut out for that. I don't think I could do it. I've been very. I know myself well enough. I don't think. I think. Yeah, I'm the guy that I'm the guy that if I have to have a tough conversation with an employee, I'm not sleeping the entire night. And if I have to if I know I have to let someone go for some reason, I'm probably not sleeping for a week before that. A week. Like I'm really. I find it's never been. I don't think it ever should be easy. I think that's one thing. If I get to the point where I don't care and I'm just like bye, then I need to stop.
I agree.
I shouldn't even be in that position if that's the case.
Chris, that's the day that I quit, is the day that I stopped getting the butterflies and feeling emotional about having to let people go. I think when you lose that empathy, again, I think it becomes just ABC 1, 2, 3, right? This is not you're affecting someone's life, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to feel some kind of way about that, I think, in order to be a person.
Yeah.
I don't know. In order to give everything, like I actually have to feel like, look, you can treat people the same way on the way out as you do on their way in.
100%.
And
I always like I'm always like, did I do the best I could for that person to succeed?
Yes.
Whether it's on the environment, whether it's giving them the right tools, right coaching, the right. I always kind of feel like, what else could I have done?
Oh, Chris, that is very
to do that.
I love that though. As a leader, I think not enough leaders think about things like that. They think in HR, you see it all the time where leaders will just go take care of this problem, right? Like I need this problem to go away, instead of thinking about people as people, and they're all going through something and they have different skill sets and they need different things. And as a leader, you have to change the way you do things in order for them to be successful. And
maybe part of it as well is because I obviously have founded the business. So it's literally emotionally tied to it as well, right?
Yeah.
So every employee so far has been hired by me. So I have this, I pride myself in trying to make sure that I can do the best I can, so when it fails, I kind of see it as like it's my failure, not theirs. if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, you made all the choices, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I let someone go recently, and the first thing I did was go on LinkedIn to try and get him a job.
Yes.
And I did. I also got a call the other day from a friend of mine. I won't say his name. And he was like, hey, I just spoke to the person. What do you think? I was like, yeah, this is what went well. This is what didn't. This is full transparency, and now they're working there, which was great.
Look,
so I was like, hey, what didn't work out here? But but it wasn't the right.
Sometimes it can be the best thing. I think that eases my mind a lot when I'm doing things like that and having to let people go. I think it eases my mind to know that not everything is a fit for everyone, and that you're actually doing them a favor by being honest. with them.
Yeah. But unfortunately, that's the hardest thing. Sometimes having those conversations is the hardest, but they're the ones that need to happen. And the longer you leave it, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to them.
I agree.
It's the sign of respect that
I agree
that you're having that conversation.
I agree.
As opposed to
real human beings having a real conversation, not conflict avoiding, Chris.
No. What would you have? What message would you have given younger Amy, looking back now? What advice?
I think so. I was a very hardworking young person, which I think at some point if you're a hardworking young person and you're just rolling with the punches and you're dealing with things and you're not really planning, that can only get you so far. And I think I realized too late that I needed to plan and I needed to proactively learn and grow in areas that I wasn't as natural, that didn't come naturally to me. Like the planning, the data, all of those kind of pieces of me. My people skills got me really far, right? My hardworking skills got me really far. My resilience got me far. But then you kind of, at some point, there's a tipping point where you say, okay, I have to be more strategic about this. And I should have learned, I wish I would have learned that a little bit sooner. Now, I'm not a coulda, shoulda, woulda kind of person. I'm exactly where I need to be right now. This is where I have to be right now. Have to is the wrong word. This is where I would love to be right now, right? Like, I feel very good in my own skin. I feel very, I'm creating value for myself and for others. Like, I feel really good. And I probably have always kind of felt that way, but that's one thing that I look back and go, I probably could have gotten further toward my goals if I would have known what they were.
Yeah, you can't hit a target that you can't see.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
and I know that now, Chris, but I didn't know that in my 20s.
No, me too. I was in the same job for 10 years, the exact same job, same responsibilities for 10 years, and I was almost waiting for permission for someone else to give me the pat on the back or the promotion or the sign I could move, and I realized, you actually own your own career, Chris.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to take charge of your career and to plan where you want to be and set that in motion. And it took me 10 years to realize I was doing well. I was quite successful in the role, but I realized that, the business is not going to move me because I'm too valuable in this position.
Yes.
I'm making them literally millions of pounds. So also, obviously, they're not going to be like, hey, Chris, go and try something else. Where, they should have done that because the outcome of that was that I left the company.
Yes.
As opposed to them giving me a new opportunity to grow and develop in the business.
Yeah.
But to your point, I wish I would have realized that a lot earlier.
Sooner, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm only 35 and I was there since I was 17. So it was a long journey and I learned a lot. And I don't think, to be honest, if the amount of lessons I learned during those 10 years, that's what prepared me to be able to start this company and be where I am now. So
you're right where you're supposed to be, Chris, right?
That's a good way of looking at it.
It takes a lot of the stress off of I should be doing this. I should be.
Which is what we all do, right?
I should have been there.
We beat ourselves up. Again, I literally just spoke about this on the last podcast, where my coach is always like, Chris, stop beating yourself up. A lot of the time, it's give yourself a break. Everyone listening right now, just give yourself a break.
Give yourself a break. That's Chris. That's really interesting. People ask me sometimes, what's the last self-help book that you read? And I said, I read a lot of books. I read everything. I'm a huge reader. And instead, I often will say, what's the last time you read a book that you didn't have to read or you didn't feel like you were learning anything from it, but it was just relaxing for your brain? How about that? How about go read that romance novel that that beach read so that you can ease your mind and press the reset button?
Turn off
How
for
about
a
that?
second. Yeah.
let's do ourselves a favor here. Talk about, self-improvement, self-help. Go do something for fun. For a change. How about that?
Amy, I can talk to you forever, but I've got to let you go at some point. As well, where can people reach you if they want to reach out and say hi and also learn more about the organization? Where's the best places to go?
Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love it. You will see my full contact information there. You can always also reach out. We have all of our career emails go to all of us in human resources off of our website, which is isalthhcm.com/careers. And we're very accessible.
Cool. Well, it was good to have you on the show, and I wish you all the best until we next speak. Enjoy your sleep.
Thank you.
I know you will. I know you do.
That.
No, it was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was a pleasure for me as well, Chris. Thank you.